Hey everybody, this is Sergeant Singh from 3RCR with the Regimental Association podcast. I'm here today at the 2 CMBG Brigade Headquarters building, and our guest today is Colonel Reeves, the brigade commander of this formation. Sir, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Hey, pleasure to be here. It's awesome to see you, Sergeant Singh, and your team.
I really appreciate you saying
Yeah.
that. For me, this is like a rare opportunity to engage with somebody who has such a significant tie to where I work. I'm at 3RCR and you were the CO of that battalion at a point before. Um, can I ask you this, or like when did you ever see yourself being in the position that you're in today?
No, not in the beginning, that's for sure. I mean, I think once you start to get into the military, you figure out, all right, there is a next step or two. And then if you're listening to the leadership advice you're getting, you tend not to worry about the next job too much. You have to be aware of it, especially operationally. You got to know 2 levels up, as we say. But like if you're asking me when I joined the military, did I even know what a brigade was? No. When I was a captain or a major, did I think I was going to be commander of 2 CMBG? Absolutely not. I've got a lot of second chances in my career, and I had to learn a lot to get, to the position. But, there's a lot to answer there. But no, I didn't really see myself getting here until pretty recently.
I look around your office, and first of all, I don't get many opportunities to go into like very high-ranking people's office spaces.
Sometimes you don't want to be, though.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I was thinking about, do I have enough lotion on my hands before I meet you today? Is my hair good?
Yeah.
But coming into your office space, I love it. It says so much about who you are.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm curious for some of the artifacts, as I would like to say, some of these historical moments in your life. When I'm looking around the walls, I see, you have these things up because they mean a lot to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a kind of like a museum, I guess. I don't know, but we got to put something on the walls. There's a few military things up here, just a little bit of a story, right? Kind of a bit of the career, like moments from your time in the regiment and in the Army that mean something to you. Either super challenged, like the U.S. Army Ranger course was challenging, but not just, that course isn't harder than courses in Canada, but it was an opportunity to go work with our American brothers and sisters as a young lieutenant to cross the border, and you feel like you're in a movie set, right? Somewhat. And, there's a few other things up there, but one of the most important ones on this particular wall is my commissioning scroll, which is at the very top, specifically centered there. And I think I was maybe 3rd or 4th year in RMC when a senior NCO said to me once, he's like, sir, like you're going to get this commissioning scroll in a couple of months. It might not mean as much to you as it should. Take the time to read it every once in a while and reflect on what it actually means. The fact that the people of Canada, through the sovereign, have commissioned you in their armed forces. And so I do that. And so I pulled it out of the stuff at home when I came into this office, and I said, you know what, that needs to go on the wall at the very top. And, once in a while I do take a read of it.
Sir, what made you want to join the military?
Oh yeah, good question. I come from Cape Breton Island, and so I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on out there, but sometimes it's been economically depressed over the years. And so most Cape Bretoners kind of realize that if you want to do something big with your life, you don't want to forget where you came from, but you probably have to leave for at least a little while. So I knew from an early age, my dad was like, all right, figure out what you're going to do, and I didn't want to end up necessarily just kind of drifting. So he's like, you got to go to university or college. You got to go do something important with your life. And then when you do something, that's worthwhile and you want to come back, then you can come back. And so when I was a kid, I was in grade 10 or 11, he put on the kitchen table like a cutout of somebody who graduated from RMC from Cape Breton Island. And I kind of read it. I didn't really think much of it because I didn't know what RMC was. Didn't really know anything about the military. Put it away. A year later, Sergeant Singh, the exact same article appeared on the kitchen table again. And I was like, okay, there's like a message being sent here, right? So I talked to Dad about it, and he said, yeah, I mean, pretty interesting, a chance to do something important, maybe see the world, get your education. What do you think? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll look into it. Yeah, a year later, was enrolled, got the scholarship to the college, and yeah, then the rest kind of carried on from there.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Were you the first person in your family to join the military?
I was the first person in my immediate family, but my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, she was in the Second World War. She was in the Women's Army Corps, and she was in France by August. And so if you can understand, D-Day in June, we didn't get very far by August, and she was across the channel by that point. And her brother as well was in Nova Scotia Highlanders, Cape Breton Highlanders at the time, now Cape Breton Highlanders again. He was killed coming back from a patrol. And that actually caused a bit of a problem in our family because my grandmother was very frustrated because what happened was he was coming back in through lines. He was doing like a rearward passage, and he was killed by his own guys. Yeah. So first introduction to friendly fire and how important, control measures are, how important coordination is, how important it is to like be alert and diligent on the line. Wasn't there, don't know what happened, but my grandmother carried that with her for a really long time. Once I joined the military, she kind of made peace with it and joined the Legion and supported me throughout my first early years of my career.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have like my own kind of family dynamics with the military, and it's similar in the sense of my grandfather was probably the most notable person to serve in my family. He served in World War II with the 11th Cavalry Regiment, British Indian Armored Corps, served in Burma. And I never got a chance to really get to know him or his stories or his lessons learned. And I think like a big part of the reason why I like to do these interviews, it gives me an opportunity to do the thing that I never got to do with somebody I loved.
Yeah.
And in a way, I have a lot of deep appreciation for everybody I get to interview. But I think it's important to try to pull the meaning and the history behind what these people have done.
Yep.
And for me, it was a part of my identity for a while, knowing that I was coming from a family, that kind of background.
Yeah, and that gets passed on to you.
Yeah, it does.
I've learned kind of over the years, and I've come to appreciate that a lot more gets passed down from generation to generation than we realize. So tying back into where you come from is super important to me. Yeah.
So, sir, with regards to like you choosing the occupation you did, infantry officer, you sound like you had it like going pretty well for you as a young person. But infantry officer, how ddid you come to this decision?
I had no idea what I was doing. No, I went to the recruiting center, and like recruiting center folks said, okay, so, you want to join the military, watch these VHS tapes, and then tell us what you want to do. So kind of scrolling through, I think I put pilot down as my fourth choice, and they saw that and sent me up to Downsview to do pilot selection training. Failed incredibly, spectacularly at that. I think I might be the only guy to crash the simulating plane. And it was very old school. It wasn't electronic at all. It was a little kind of plane that you might see at the mall. You put your quarters in, and I couldn't even get that thing to fly straight. So they suggested that I think about a different occupation. So I joined the military still, though, as an air operations officer. And then once I got to basic training, I realized it's not really what I wanted to do. So I started applying for an OT right away. And
that's interesting. You say that's not what I really wanted to do. What happened in that time frame?
Well, I mean, maybe this is a bit of a theme, but on my basic training, the platoon commander was a Army signals officer. The platoon warrant was an infantry warrant, and the platoon warrant was a SIGS warrant, but from the Airborne Regiment. Pathfinder torch, lots of great operational experience, tactical experience. And one of the sergeants was infantry. So I kind of got an idea that I wanted to get into the Army. And then, I realized between basic training and the next summer that I wanted to go to the infantry.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Since you've been in the infantry, sir, you've done quite a few things in your career, operational deployments, courses, taskings, and held a lot of different positions. You talked about Ranger School here. You talked about being commissioned. I see a lot of unique things about Ukraine around your room.
Yeah.
Is there any particular fond memories you have of that operation that you were able to be the task force commander of?
Okay. Yeah, that's relatively recent. That one is like that deployment definitely means a lot to me. All my deployments and opportunities in the Army kind of like have definitely taught me something. The interesting thing about Ukraine was that was the first time where, like, as a task force commander, you had a lot of responsibility, but also authority over your area of operation. And so, I learned there that understanding your environment, doing the running estimate constantly, applying like what we're trained as officers to do, and senior NCOs to, what's my mission? Has the situation changed? What resources do I have? What weak signals in my environment am I detecting that I need to pay more attention to? Like, putting all that training and experience together came out as a task force commander. So we had our 5 G5s, so our key planner doing long range planning. We had the 3 doing all the operations. We had one of the companies from the battalion attached to the Americans doing all of the training of the Ukrainians. And as the situation was evolving and the Ukrainian general staff needed more from us in certain areas, we were able to kind of like reallocate senior NCOs and junior officers to academies or to even public affairs events. It's like this orchestrating this constant, symphony of resources and tasks. And if you try to just do that haphazardly, sort of saying, like you've lived this, you're going to burn people out. And so we had to really be disciplined in our battle procedure. So I kind of learned that what we had been taught works if you apply it. I also learned the value that Canadian soldiers bring. So the Ukrainians wanted more of Canada. That's a bit of a bumper sticker right now, but they really did. We were super, collaborative with the Ukrainians, with the US, with the Brits, with the Swedes, Danish, Poles, very, very collaborative. And although I think 2 brigades used to that now because of all the tours to Latvia, that was still fairly new in that period, because that was still kind of a few years post-Afghanistan where we were, a battle group working in a coalition, but we didn't have a lot of international attachments. Ukraine was very, very international. So just got another neat experience. Yeah.
So with that being said, we are kind of going off script here because these are not some of the questions. If you're okay, I'm going to ask you one that's going to be relevant to what's coming up for you and the brigade, which is Latvia. And speaking to what you're saying about working in like a multinational type of basis with your last mission, with this one coming up, sir, can you talk a little bit about how this one's going to be different from the previous rotations that we've done in Latvia?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, the biggest difference is 2 Brigade is going to lead the multinational brigade over there. And the multinational brigade is a Canadian-led brigade. So for the first time in a very long time, we'll have a colonel from our regiment commanding a really, really good-sized international brigade in Europe, right on the doorstep with Russia. So our battle group that we've been generating for a while will still remain under that brigade. We're also going to bring in a full Danish battle group, very, very capable. They will hand off back and forth with a Swedish battle group. And then inside that brigade, we're going to have, a recce squadron. We're going to have an international logistics unit, a multinational medical unit. So all the bits and pieces that make up a brigade across all of our trades are all going to be fielded in Latvia.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. But what my biggest task will be is to increase the readiness of that brigade. Like, you can't do it all at once. When we're talking about brigade and up to divisional level readiness, that's national resources that have to flow in. And so there's going to be a lot of stuff coming from Canada that gets integrated into the brigade, and then we have to figure out the right place to put it and how much of it we can use and how much we have to keep in reserve, in case the balloon goes up, as they say. Yeah.
That's interesting, sir. I know a lot of my friends work in various places in Petawawa, so everyone's gearing up for this one big main effort that's happening in all of our careers.
Yeah.
I guess, how do I put this? Have you ever thought you'd be in this kind of role, leading a brigade,
right.
In
operations.
At the RCR colonel?
Well, no. I mean, no, you don't. I do feel humbly, I feel like I won the lottery. There are Lots of great RCR colonels out there that would have done, that will do a great job if they were swapped out with me or would do. You can't really control how you get picked for these kind of jobs. Specifically, you just have to trust that, if you're working hard, looking after your people, with a little bit of good timing, then these types of opportunities come up. So, you can't plan it. You can't bet on it happening. But while I feel humbled by the opportunity, I feel a lot of responsibility to do it right. And so it keeps me up at night. I'm glad I have at least a year to get the brigade ready, but that has we've burned through a lot of time already.
Was there like a playbook? Was there any kind of notes you had, something to lean on to kind of help you?
Yeah.
Or are you kind of figuring it a lot on your own?
You know what? You're accountable to figure it out, but you're not doing it on your own. Probably there might be people out there that could do it by themselves, but I couldn't do it by myself. And that's not the way our system is really set up. Like, for example, I've already been over on a strat recce. The Roto Zero brigade commander is over there now, Colonel Cedric Aspero. Him and his team are starting to lay trail for us. We've got the division commander here supporting the fourth generation of it. We've got the commander of CJOC, General Boivin, and his team thinking about, what we need once we get there. I've got the brigade sergeant major here all the time, as kind of locally that I'm bouncing ideas off of. So you can't do it on your own. Even the personal side of it, you need to lean on folks that can, you can bounce your ideas off of or keep you honest, make sure you're following through on the things you wanted to do. But operationally, kind of like what I was saying when I was in Ukraine, there's more than just you and your environment. And, we say the cliche is the enemy has a vote, but that's actually a term for something bigger, is that you're just a node in a system that's always, putting pressure on you. And so you're trying to chart your way through that. And so if you, as a brigade commander, if you think that, you'll just go sit under a tree, come up with your estimate, give some orders, and that's how it's going to happen, absolutely not. You're constantly trying to figure out where you're going, honestly. You have a general direction. You got to be clear in your tasks, but, there's so much going on in your space that you need good process to make sense of all that. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's well said there.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be reviewing this episode and just taking it all in again. Yeah. But I had questions about what kind of things you'd recommend or what's your definition of leadership. But just hearing you talk about the answers to the other questions I've already asked you, it's just, it comes to me that you are a person who's a testament to what leadership should be like. People in the battalion. When I first ever saw your face or name, it was on top of all the cap badges of our candidates going through the RCR battle school at 4 CDTC Reeford. And I saw your face. I was a reservist at the time. I was working there. And I remember asking one of my fellow instructors who was RCR from 3RCR, I'm like, who is that? I know that's the CO. He's like, that's Superman. I'm like, what? But that's Superman. And as you may know, there are nicknames, and you may be familiar with that nickname for yourself. But I'm like, who? Yeah. And man, that's
pretty funny though. But that has nothing to do with my ability to jump tall buildings or run fast. The great Superman actor was Christopher Reeves, right? So that has kind of caught on, and it's pretty funny. One of the guys I worked with in Afghanistan, one of the deployments, he had his mom send over a Superman costume. I don't know if you heard this story or seen. There's a photo floating out there, and I think it's in one of the issues of Pro Patria. And I don't do it to try to be famous or whatever. I just thought, man, if this awesome guy went through all this effort to get this costume sent over, I better put it on at least once. And so put it on. I know it might sound a bit inappropriate in that, to be in an operational or a combat zone to do that, but it's kind of the decision making I was going through at the time. Put it on. We were inside the fob. Kind of no harm, no foul. It should be kind of fun. And then it was kind of quiet for an hour or two. There was, nobody was coming in and going from the fob. There was no troops in contact happening. I was near the command post, so could have got back into the command post if I need to. I was a company 2IC at the time. And then I thought, you know what? I want to kind of get a good view of this. So I went up on top of the bunker, which was quite high up. And of course, like there's some U.S. general was unannounced, coming to visit the FOB. So him and his Black Hawk are flying in, right? The dust is going everywhere. And I'm standing like, I'm looking at the helicopter, but it looks like I'm like marshaling the helicopter in. And then someone takes a picture of it, of course. And
no way.
Oh yeah.
There's a legendary photo of this moment.
Oh yeah.
That's incredible.
It looks totally canned. It looks like Chris Reeves is trying to like, be either a jackass or whatever about it. And like people, in my chain of command have definitely spoke to me about it. Like I said, I had a lot of second chances. That was one of many.
That's an incredible story. That's legendary.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's legendary.
I started saying like getting ready to go to Ukraine. I opened my barrack box when I got there, and someone had plastered it inside my barrack box, like during the inspections for UAB. And so I'm like, oh man, I can't get away from this thing. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Right on, sir.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, when I first understood who you were, someone introduced you as Superman, but how they were explaining it, it was genuine to the admiration that the people from your battalion had of you.
That's kind.
And, I'm very thankful to be in a position where I get to spend time to remember seeing the photo of the person to now sitting in the room with that person.
Yeah, we're all just kind of doing what we can, right? Like we do, I think, right? Maybe it makes a lot of sense to do, but we certainly talk up our leaders, and we tend to put them on pedestals sometimes. I think that is good when it's done in the right way, because like, the brigade sergeant major here, that man has a huge amount of responsibility, and that he got to that position because of all the hard work that he's put in, and he's looked after his people all along the way. And so rightfully so, we should look up to somebody like him. If you are a regimental sergeant major or the CO of the battalion, you've been selected by the Army for that role, but you weren't selected out of like off a piece of paper.
Yeah.
All through your time, I would hope that you dedicated yourself to your people and the mission, and you were able to achieve that balance, and went through gateways, and you continually demonstrated that you were suitable for higher levels of authority. And so if you're new to the regiment and you see that there's a photo on the wall, and the CO of the RSM appear to be getting some kind of like celebrity treatment, it's not about celebrity. It's just as a way to demonstrate that we put a lot of trust in those people, both from below and from above. And so that kind of manifests that way. But at the end of the day, Sergeant Singh, man, like I'm a people person, and I think at the base of it, we're all people.
Yeah. Right.
And we all have a job to do. I kind of give some of that over to not just my upbringing in Cape Breton, but like I see you got your white wings on there, and not everybody gets a chance to do airborne training in our Army. Everyone should get a chance to do it, but not everybody does. But once you do get a chance to do it, and you get into that community, one of the things that we teach folks that parachute is that there's no rank in the air, right? And when you get on the drop zone, everybody needs to understand the mission, because we don't know actually who's going to survive that jump. So if you get down and you happen to be the guy who's closest to the mortar, closest to the crew serve weapons, or you're going to be closest to the RV and you're the best guy to set it up to market, then that's what you got to go do. And if at the end of the jump, if it was supposed to be a company group and there's a platoon plus left, the senior person there has to have known the company's mission, and everybody else has to know the mission of the rest of the company, no matter where they were in which platoon. And so I really believe that like if we respect each other as people and we all bring something to the mission, then we don't need to get too upset about kind of the military vision of like the hierarchy, and like that's important. It has its role, but we still have to understand the other side of it, if you know what I mean.
That's very well said, sir.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, thanks.
I want to come back to the idea of like putting people on a pedestal, because I find that it's like a fine balance that you need, because it's important, I think, for young people especially to have role models. And what can happen is that you admire them so much.
Even old people need role models. Trust me. Yeah, I think it's not to cut you off, but if you ever got there, you're not saying this, but if you ever got to a point where you're like, I'm now the role model, I don't need role models. Okay, you are a role model for sure. You have to model the right behavior and the right leadership that we need. But if you think you're done learning, like you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
For sure, no matter who you are. Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you're saying this and we're able to share your perspective and thoughts towards this. It's interesting whether you do jiu-jitsu as well. This grandmaster in jiu-jitsu, I believe he was like Horacio Gracie. He's like, when I die, bury me with my blue belt.
Yeah.
And this person achieved the highest accolades of his sport that his family created.
Yeah.
He's like, bury me with my blue belt, because when I die, I want those that are there to know that I was always a student.
Yeah. That's I never heard that. I've never heard him say that. I never saw that written by him, but that's a fantastic quote.
Yeah.
What a great way to think about it.
I always found that some of my favorite heroes in my life were people who possess a lot of humility because they were so capable.
Yeah.
I come into your room, I'm not going to lie, like I have this like fanboy moment. And I also I'm very, I admire it, a person who's gone through the different training programs you have, the deployments you've experienced, the positions of leadership that you've conducted, you've done, you held. It's intimidating, and I don't know how I'm keeping it together for this interview, but no, thank you.
Yeah, you're super kind.
And I kind of went off script a little bit with my questions here.
Yeah, that's no problem. I was I was thinking about your question there about like memories, right?
Yeah.
Of kind of my time in service, because we are trying to share out, connect with the rest of the association, senior folks, junior folks. When you get a bit older, I find that you remember some specific events, but like periods of time start to collapse together. And I see like my first 2 years in the battalion as like a super fond memory. It's kind of a neat story in the sense like, I got to 1RCR right after they came back from Kosovo. They were just getting back, and it was incredible to be able to take command of my first platoon, something that I'd been trained for and been preparing for about 5 years at that point. And from there, learning from your NCOs, you're going to the field, dealing, working with your troops, and got to go do, Ranger School, advanced recce, some huge exercises. Like we did the big first Brigade X in Wainwright after a long pause of going out there. It was fantastic. Very privileged, very lucky to have given the opportunities to learn from some of the folks and do cool courses and training. But there was no deployment on the horizon. And I know that sometimes we make a lot about deployments because it is definitely the thing we want to do. But I was going through that phase, and I had some good advice from folks. I'm like, listen, deployments are something we all want to do for sure, but it's not the only thing. Like being ready is part of our profession here, and we get a lot out of training here in Canada and working with our people. So I was there. I was 100% there. I'm like, okay, if deployments aren't coming, they're not coming. That's fine. 9/11 had happened, and 3rd Battalion was tasked to go into Kabul in 2003, and I was in 1st Battalion. So I'm like, you know what? That's how it goes. That's how it's going to break. I'll finish my time in battalion. I'll be posted to a school or another posting after that. But they needed platoons for 3RCR, mechanized platoons. And I didn't really even know that.
This is for 03?
This is for 03. I didn't know this was happening. And next thing you know, I was being called into the OC's office, and OC and Sergeant Major there in combat support over in 1RCR. And they said, listen, we're building 3 rifle platoons. And we've thought about it. We're picking you and a bunch of your NCOs from Recce Platoon and 1RCR, and you're going to become 7 Platoon. And I was like, that's amazing, And I said, I don't know what the calculus was, how we got there, but it kind of showed to me that, well, you don't have control over like a specific decision of hire. If you work hard, you stay humble, you're concentrating on getting better, your reputation does precede you, like the cliche says. And, they assembled these platoons based on people in 1RCR that they thought would work well together and represent 1st Battalion well with the 3rd. And so it kind of worked out. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I've had those moments too where you can't help if you really love what you do or you're passionate, you're dedicated to what you do. but feel like a little bit of resentment or some sort of thing when it's like, never got to go.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what unit, you know, you have folks who experience this where a certain amount of people are going out the door and you weren't part of that group.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have a situation this year where I just came back from Op Unifier when we were training in England
Yeah.
at this location. But when I got back, I didn't see myself deploying for at least a few years. And an opportunity just came down. One day I get pulled out of my office.
Yep.
And my warrant officer is asking me, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But we're talking about sending people to this location to do this or this location to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't know when you're going to come back. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yes. And I know they had to fight for me to be the guy to go. So I really appreciate these people who take the time to take care of me.
But listen,
You know,
but you were ready, right?
I was ready.
You were ready.
That was a big part of it.
Yeah, you were ready. You know, you had your personal readiness in a good state. You had a good communication with your family. You know, you had good comms with your chain of command. You were ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all of our responsibility.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about it that way, that's part of our duties to be ready.
Yes.
You know, and that's the only real way to be as effective as possible when it's time to go do the things when you go out the door, whatever the operation is. I always find it interesting being in the infantry. All the deployments I've done, I never got to do anything that was quite like what the veterans I've served with said Afghanistan was like.
Right.
And, you know, in particular to say about Afghanistan, the whole concept of combat operations. I've been on 4 operational deployments.
Yeah.
None of them were combat operations.
Yeah.
And so being an infantry soldier, I can speak to that. We're asked to do a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of variety involved in it.
Huge.
And being ready is a big concept of training hard, you know, having a high level of dedication, taking care of your people, studying, you know, trying to be the best version of yourself. And that's led to me being so adaptable and flexible at whatever the Army's asked me to do.
Yeah, it's hard saying. I think there's some wise words in what you just said there. We have to be careful, I think, how you define success. And there are things outside of your control. Like, you know, if you're trying to get a specific job, you can work really hard to get to the long list. You might even be able to, you know, influence things so that you get to the short list, but you have no control getting picked off the list as the one person. You can't. If you think you have control over that, you really don't. If you decided that your only measure of success was that one specific thing, you're going to be disappointed. If you define your career as a specific type of operation, because it's so much out of your control, you know, it's not really, I don't think, a healthy way to think about it. But if you understand why we serve for duty, to achieve professional competence, to always learn. These sound like buzzwords, but we're in a profession. That's what makes a professional. And that's an honorable goal to have, is to be a professional through and through from day one in your career to the last day. That's, I mean, how you define success is really important. And you don't know what that is early on, but kind of these types of conversations, talking to like some of the veterans you were mentioning, like, yeah, there's things you would like to do, but you can't hang like your definition of a successful career or a successful period of service just on that one specific thing.
Yeah, well said, because I did. Yeah. And so we and my colleagues did.
Totally natural. I did it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easy. It's kind of easy for us to say, you know, like, you know, don't worry about it when you were the guy that got to do it. It is a bit rich. So I don't discount that. It is a bit rich for me to say that, you know, because I was fortunate enough to serve in Afghanistan a few times, and I was able to get on some really great courses and that. But I really believe like this could be the last thing that I do for a long time, and that, you know, but I'm still going to keep serving in uniform. And I know after 2 CMBG, I'm going back to Ottawa, maybe in a cubicle, and do the best I can with the spreadsheets and the briefing notes that I get tasked to write. I'll be trying to make the CAF a little bit better from my corner of it. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Well said, sir.
And
like, we've been talking for a long time. You're a very busy person.
Yeah.
I do want to leave you with 1 or 2 questions if you have time.
Sure.
And that's just based towards like the whole idea of what kind of advice do you have for junior officers that may be listening and deciding how they want to navigate their career, if they want to continue their career?
Yeah. There's a lot there. I would, I mean, if any of the junior officers watching have kind of gotten through whatever you edit out and edit in for this one, Hopefully they've taken away a couple of things. Like, they really do need to see all of their people as people. They really need to have genuine respect for their folks, because, like, let's be honest, we decide who our leaders are, right? Followers decide to follow you. I could give orders. People need to obey lawful orders, but inside at your core, we decide who we follow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just can't, just by calling yourself a leader doesn't make you a leader. And if you understand that tension, then you're going to do everything you can to, like, on a moral level, like, be humble, be respectful, be ethical and moral. But then on the professional side, you got to be competent. Leaders people want to follow competent leaders, because there's a reason why you're leading them. You're leading them somewhere. Those leaders need to be smart. They need to be able to, like, read the situation, adjust the plan on the go. These are all basics that the junior officers would have been exposed to. Now, what their biggest task is, like, what is that? How do I work on that every day in garrison? How do I do that? Am I understanding what's happening in the company right now this week? Am I putting myself in my sergeant major's shoes and my OC's shoes? Am I putting myself in my 2 and 2 IC's shoes and my section commander's shoes? Like, am I doing that? Am I looking what's coming down the pipe? So if they get in a battle rhythm to do that, and they're not worrying necessarily about their career, they're worrying about the mission and their people, it really will go in the right direction. So that's my advice to them at that stage. Because, like, it's not just because it happened to me. One of my roles is to support Colonel French, our regimental colonel, who manages our officer and senior NCO development with the regimental chief warrant officer. And so their job is to put the best team on the field that the regiment can. They decide who gets posted where in senior positions, like who the next OCs are, who the next sergeant majors are, regimental succession board. And by supporting Colonel French in that kind of capacity, I get to talk to him about, how the junior officers are interpreting regimental communication, what's important to the regiment. And he's telling me that for the most part, we're doing the right things. But really, it's this reputation amongst your peers that matters as well, too. So we tend to kind of forget about that. So that was a long way to say, like, we are a team, right? And when you go in, when people are looking at, how folks are doing, we kind of do a 360. And so if the institution's doing a 360 on you, 360 assessment, then you need to be constantly doing a 360 assessment on yourself. How am I being perceived by my senior NCOs, my troops? How am I being perceived by my supervisors? How am I being perceived by my peers? So that'd be my last take. That takes time, takes effort, but you got to pause and do that.
Right on, sir. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Like, it's been a long interview. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope in the future, if you have time, we would love to do a follow-up interview down the road.
I'll make myself available. Maybe we'll do like a second go.
Yeah.
Take two.
No, not we'll do take two.
Well, yeah.
You're a very interesting person to talk to. I'm glad I hope you had fun.
Yeah.
This is what I love to do, is to get your perspective, your attitude, and hear some stories along the way.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you very much.